Welcome to the Chase Podcast. Dr. Ron Charles is a renowned archaeologist, author, historian, speaker, missionary, and is known as the Christian Indiana Jones. Dr. Charles has spent over 50 years researching and uncovering truths about Jesus Christ and information that proves the historical authenticity of the Bible. Gleaned from his years of tireless research, ministry, and archaeological work as the pages of the Bible come to life like never before. Visit cubitfoundation.org for Dr. Ron's books and information about this global ministry.
Hello, I'm Dr. Ron Charles from the Cubit Foundation. Good to have you on today. Today we're going to be talking about a judge that was in the book of Judges. And the book of Judges is called a book of judgment, but it's also talks about a book of failures. So basically, with the exception of just a couple of the judges that are listed, Deborah being one, it talks about the failures of the judges of Israel. The things they did, the things they should have done, the things they didn't do. But it tells about all of the different types of failures in these judges' lives. But the one exception of that is recorded in the 10th chapter of Judges. And our first couple of verses, I want to read it to you. And after Abimelech, there arose to defend Israel Tola, the son of Pasha, the son of Dodo, a man of Ishkar, and he dwelt in Shamar in Mount Ephraim. And he judged Israel 23 years and died and was buried in Shamar. Now, this seems like a very miniature biography, I guess you could say. But considering the book of Judges is a book of failures and the record of failures, when a failure is not recorded about a man or a judge, then that's a pretty good indication that he did well. The judge before Zola was Abimelech. Abimelech had a long history of things that he did that were not pleasing to the Lord or pleasing to the people. And a couple of the things he did was even detrimental. He invaded the land of Egypt. At that time, Egypt was the most powerful nation in the world. And the Pharaoh at that time was Ramses II, and he was the most powerful ruler in the entire world at that time. And Abimelech would be like a fly attacking the horse. And so this is exactly what happened. Abimelech pulled his army together and actually invaded Egypt and laid siege to the capital of Egypt in Thebes. Well, needless to say, the Pharaoh of Egypt didn't feel that this was appropriate, and he defended himself. And not only that, he chased Abimelech all the way back into Israel. And there he punished him and promised that he was going to come back with another army, with a greater army, and actually not only defeat Israel, but to wipe it off the face of the map. And so while all that was taking place, Abimelech died, and Zola took his place. Now Zola was from the tribe of Ephraim, and it says that he ruled for 23 years. Now, at that time, the Hittites had become enemies of Abimelech. The Egyptians had become enemies of Abimelech, and all of the surrounding areas had become enemies of Abimelech and thus enemies of Israel. And he had just did everything he could to rub these guys the wrong way. And all of them had set out to totally destroy him, destroy his rule, to destroy his people. And so when Tola began to rule, then he had 3 strikes against him already, and seemingly. He had the most powerful nation in the world against him, the second most powerful nation, the Hittites, against him, and everyone else in the surrounding area that was against him. And so basically he didn't have any friends. He didn't have anything going for him. But yet, the Word of God says that he ruled for 23 years, and there was no record of any wars, any relationship problems, no problems with his neighbors, and none whatsoever with the corresponding ruling families, which is a miracle, if you say, for the judges, because as I had mentioned earlier, this was a book of judgments, a book of failures, recorded every failure that the judges had done. But yet, in Tola's case, there was no negatives, there was no judgments, there were no failures. He did very, very well. And so what it boiled down to is that he did the work that he's supposed to do. He did the ruling that he's supposed to do. He made decisions that were good for the country, good for the people, and good for the surrounding area. The judgments that he made did not irritate the neighbors, did not antagonize the neighbors, and they didn't cause an enemy with the ruling empires that bordered Israel, especially with Egypt. After Tola, then Egypt invaded the area and ruled it for another approximately 170 years. But during Tola's stay, that did not happen. And so he ruled admirably, and he did a great job. And so basically what you're looking at is a man who did what he's supposed to do. There wasn't anything written about him of extraordinary circumstances, extraordinary accomplishments. He just did what he's supposed to do. He did what God wanted him to do. He did what was expected of him as a ruler, and he did what was expected of him by the people for the benefit of the people and for the benefit of the kingdom. And so Tola, there's not much written about him, but the reason why not much is written about him is because he did what he was expected to do, and he did what he is supposed to do. In our lives today, there are those that do extraordinary deeds. We have the deeds of dictators, of judges, of kings and queens, and in our case in America, presidents and vice presidents. Other places throughout the world, you have prime ministers, and you have the rulers of parliament and so forth. And there's many times there's not a lot written about these people. And the reason why there's not a lot written about them is because there wasn't really anything extraordinary about them on their rule. It was just typical, everyday doing what is right. And when you have an everyday classification in your rule of doing what is right, what is expected, and what is necessary, then very seldom is there any great historical lessons associated with that. It's only when you do something wrong, only when you do something that upsets the people, only when you do something that upsets your neighbors and upsets the other kingdoms and the other divisions of a particular geographical region is when you have those records of those things. And that's when things are written, when things are derogatory, and when things are brought to the attention of the historians for those to read further down the line. But when there's nothing written, then chances are nothing exceptional happened except what was supposed to happen. Thus was a case with Tola. He didn't do anything that upset the apple cart. He didn't do anything that was contrary to what he's supposed to do. He was faithful to his position as a judge. His judgment was right. His judgment was complete. His judgment was trustworthy. His judgment was pleasing to God. And as a result of that, then there was no great things out of the extraordinary that were written about him. He did what he's supposed to do. He did what he's supposed to do with the people, with the government, with God, with his family, and as a result, there was peace. During the reign of Tola, there was peace longer than any other time in any of the other judges that ruled the Jewish people from the time that there were judges. And so during that time of peace, this is the time that God was able to prosper the people, and he did. He prospered them because there was no wars to destroy anything that had been done. There was no peace treaties that had to be made, which you give something and I give something. You gain and we both gain. We lose, we both lose. None of that happened because during his reign, he just did what he's supposed to do. And so in our lives, some of you may live very extraordinary lives. Some of you may live in areas that there's violence. Some of you may live in areas that there's peace, and there has been peace for years. Well, those that are in control at that time, whether it be your mayor, whether it be your city council, whether it be your representatives, your congressmen, your senators, that's a great testimony to their rule and a great testimony to their decisions that they've made when there is no problems, when there's absolute peace. When there's peace, there's nothing to write about. There's no controversy. There's no problems because they ruled and you ruled in admirably. You ruled pleasing to the people and pleasing to God. And as such, there's really not a whole lot to write about that. Tola was this type of guy. Peace ruled. There was trade with the neighbors. There was no conflict, no border conflicts. There was no conflicts with the religion. There was no conflicts with political secession. There was no conflicts between the military personnel. It was just peaceful. There were no failures. There was nothing to write about. So as a result of that, peace ruled in his stead. Now, in our lives today, many times our president is in the news daily because of things that he didn't do, things that he should have done, things that he did do. Other times in other countries, you have prime ministers that are in the news continually. You have dictatorships that are in the news continually. And the reason why they're in the news is because they did something to upset somebody. They did something that was not the most appropriate way to do it. They spent money when they should not have. They invaded a country that they should not have invaded. They did something militarily that they should not have done, so it makes news. This is not necessarily a good thing. Probably the best news that could be had for these particular countries is no news at all. When there's no news, it means everything is okay. There's no problems. There's no difficulties. And this is what we as a nation could strive for. We as a nation could strive for politically as well as spiritually. Whenever there's not a conflict with the powers of darkness, whenever there's not a conflict with our neighbors and not a conflict over religion, whenever there's continuity, whenever there's peace, whenever all of us are pulling together for a single purpose with a single goal, then that is what we should strive for. And so what we are doing in the Middle East, and we've been there in Egypt and in the Middle East for almost 30 years. Our job, if at all possible, is to work ourselves out of a job. We are supporting widows. We are supporting persecuted believers. We're supporting people that really can't support themselves. Our job, ideally, would be for the government or other organizations or the people themselves to pull together to try to support their own widows, try to support their own orphans, try to support their own people that are struggling, and try to live at peace with Christians, live at peace with the Muslims and the Christians living together in an atmosphere of peace. And that would be the ideal thing. If that was to happen, then we wouldn't have a job. And that is the ideal thing for us to do, is to not to have a job, because the government itself, the people themselves, the neighbors themselves are taking care of their own problems and their own difficulties. But how it is now, there's conflict between the Muslims and the Christians, and even conflict between the Christians themselves within the ranks of Christianity, the conflict within the ranks of Islam itself, when one branch is fighting against the other branch, and one area is fighting against another area, one philosophy is fighting against another philosophy. There is never peace. There is never continuity. There's never a settling of particular issues. There's always problems. There's always difficulties. And so in the midst of that is where we are. And within that midst, we have to continue to do what we do to help those that need to be helped. When James made the statement in James 1:27, what is true religion? He did not name a denomination. He did not name a group of churches. He didn't name a presbytery. He didn't name a cathedral. He didn't name any type of religious tolerance or intolerance. He just says true religion is this. It's to feed the widows, to care for the widows, to care for the orphans, and to put all of your efforts into caring for those people. And when you do that, that is true religion. It doesn't mean that you eliminate all denominations. It doesn't mean you eliminate all churches. It doesn't mean that you eliminate Good Samaritan organizations. What it means is you work within those organizations to get the job done. True religion is this: to care for the widows, to care for the orphans, and to keep yourself pure from the world. And within those parameters is where we, as believers in Christ, must work. An interesting thing that James said concerning the widows and concerning the orphans. James said absolutely nothing whatsoever about caring for Christian widows and Christian orphans. James said nothing about caring for Roman widows or Roman orphans. He said nothing about caring for Jewish widows or Jewish orphans. The same thing with the Greeks, with the Persians, with the Egyptians. Nothing about that. He just said strictly widows and orphans. No titles, no identification. He said, if they're in need, then you meet the need. Charles Finney, the great 18th century revivalist up in New England, made the statement one time that when I read it, it stuck with me. He said, love is this. Love is meeting a person at their point of need, regardless of what that need may be. And so this is what we are trying to do in the Middle East with the 30 some odd years that we have lived there, that we've worked there, that we have ministered among the Islamic people, is that we try to the best of our ability to practice what Charles Finney identified as love, to meeting a person at their point of need, regardless of what that need may be. Sometimes that means food. Sometimes that means clean water. Sometimes that means to bandage up a broken arm or an injury of some sort. Sometimes it means providing some transportation. Sometimes it means providing some housing for some people. But whatever the case may be, whatever the need may be, well, we're there to attempt to meet that need regardless of what that need may be. And I think that this is what James was talking about. And this is what is pleasing to our God. This is what is pleasing to the service that He has provided for us to do. And if we can go down in history as doing our job, then like Tola, there may not be any great things written about us. There may not be any great things written because we had no failures that were newsworthy. We had no great things that were against us that were newsworthy. What we did was our job. We did what we're supposed to do. We did what is pleasing to God. We did what is pleasing to His kingdom for the growth of His kingdom. And as such, then your names will not be in lights. As such, you will not be noteworthy. You'll be noteworthy to the kingdom of God only. And to Him is where you want your name to be in lights anyway. And so if we're doing our job, then we may or may not get the recognition from the world that someone would get if you were in total failure. You know, recently on the news, we've heard a lot about North Korea. Well, North Korea is in the news for one reason, and one reason only, is that they are practicing their activities that are contrary to peace. And what they're doing is not a peaceful solution to things that they are trying to accomplish. And as a result of that, then they're in the news because it's contrary to the world of peace. It's contrary to the attempts to bring peace into the world. As a result, they're in the news. So our purpose as believers, our purpose as Christians, our purpose as workers for Christ is to be Tolas in our own atmosphere, within our own congregations, within our own setting, within our own communities, that we are not newsworthy except to the kingdom of God. We're doing what we're supposed to do. We're accomplishing what we're supposed to accomplish. We're giving food. We're giving water. We're helping the widows. We're helping those that need our help. We're providing transportation. We're providing medical care. We're providing those things to help other people that cannot get that help in any other way or in any other method. But we are there to do what Jesus does. We're there to do what He would do in a situation like if He was here to do the same thing. We're privileged. You know, our Lord will never again come to this earth like He did before. He'll never again come as a baby. He'll never again grow up as a teen, as a young man, and as a grown man. He'll never again walk these roads like He did before and accomplish the miracles that He did before, the teachings that He did before. He has given that privilege to us. And because He has given that privilege to us, then we have the responsibility to do what He did. We have the responsibility to teach. We have the responsibility to love. We have the responsibility to absorb people, to bring them to us because they're being brought to Christ. And if we are the ones that are uplifting Christ, then people will be drawn to us because they're naturally being drawn to Him. What is our goal? Our goal is to be unnoticed. To do the things that we're supposed to do, not anything that's noteworthy or not anything that's newsworthy. Because when it's noteworthy or newsworthy, more times than none, it's because we did something wrong, or did something bad, or did something that is contrary to the peaceful atmosphere that should be. Our job is to just do our job. Do our job the way it's supposed to be done. To do our job in peace, to do our job faithfully, and to do our job as unto the Lord at all times. And if we do that, then we may or may not get the recognition that we get. We may or may not be exalted into a realm of honor and prestige. We may or may not get the type of recognition that you would get otherwise, but we are doing what Jesus said to do. We are doing His will. We're accomplishing His purpose. We're going into the world and we are being Christ to those people. Many times, especially in the Middle East where we are, the only Christ that those people see is what is in us. And how do we treat them? How do we respond to them? How do we communicate with them? And the way we communicate with them many times is how they feel that Jesus would relate to them, and how Jesus would talk to them, and how Jesus would treat them. And that is what we want to do. That's the impression we want to leave with these people, that Jesus is Lord, Jesus is kind, and Jesus can meet all of their needs, and we're there to present those things to you. Nothing elaborate, nothing different, just godly, Christ-like, the way Jesus would do it. We're going to ask all of you, if you will, to pray for us, pray for the persecuted believers. Those of you who will, dedicate, set aside 5 minutes a day to pray for the persecuted believers. They need our help desperately. They need your prayers desperately. They're praying for 3 things. Number 1, they can live one more day. Number 2, that they have the grace to forgive their oppressors. And number 3, that they have the opportunity to tell at least one person about Jesus before they die. So we need your help. Dedicate yourself to them by praying for them 5 minutes a day, every day. And may the Lord richly bless you. Hi, I'm Dr. Ron Charles of the Cubit Foundation. You know, we've been in Middle East for going on 30 years. And I would love to come to your church or your meeting to let you know what's happening in reality in the Middle East. And we'd love to come there and let you know what's happening, what the Lord's doing in that part of the world. So if you can contact us at thecubitfoundation.org, then we can come to your place. And if you would like to find out more about us, then go to www.cubitfoundation.org. Thank you.
The Chase with Dr. Ron Charles is sponsored by supporters of the Cubit Foundation. Visit cubitfoundation.org for Dr. Ron's books and discover how you can support this global ministry.